Go ahead, make the bull case for why people ought to buy Tesla shares.
Well, Tesla's pretty much, they're growing really, really fast, and investors will pay for profitability and for growth. And if you look at Q1, Tesla grew about 1,700 and something percent. And there's a lot of potential for this company to continue to grow and for the company itself to double and double and double again.
So what kind of growth are you talking about when you mention 1,000%? Because when you look at their actual earnings, they would have lost money if they hadn't counted some of those tax credits, as well as shifting around some of the loans and the repayments that they made to the U.S. government.
You're absolutely right that the margins on Tesla's vehicles are, they're an area of focus for investors. And so over the course of this year, what investors need to see is that those margins show steady progression upward toward 25% gross margin. And I think Tesla will do that. The long term is, okay, they do 20,000 vehicles this year. The long term is maybe 200,000 to 500,000 vehicles at a much lower price point. At a 25% gross margin, that would get you to about $15 in earnings per share at about 500,000 units per year sold. That's the long-term thinking.
All right, so this is based on Tesla selling 500,000 units. Now, we know that Goldman Sachs came out yesterday. They lowered their price target on the shares of Tesla to 84. You've got a price target of $200 a share. Joe McAlinden, that's a gap you could drive a Tesla through. How is it possible? Is this just an example of what happens when you have irrational exuberance chasing a stock?
It's funny you should use that term, Tim, because you'll recall when Alan Greenspan used that phrase, it brought on a bit of a market correction in 1997. But the next 2 years, kind of like the taper correction, the next 2 years we went into one of the frothiest markets in modern history, with the dot-com stocks going crazy, selling at 100 multiples of 100 times earnings. And we're seeing that today, I think, in a lot of areas. I'm not an expert on Tesla, and Angela may be right. This may be the greatest stock in the world. But when I very first came into the business many years ago, bowling alley stocks were selling at over 100 times earnings. The early transistor stocks were selling at 100 times earnings. And by and large, the average one of those that you would have bought wouldn't have worked out very well, especially like in 1962, in the middle of the Cuban Missile Crisis. They all got hammered.
Andrea, what could go wrong with your thesis for Tesla?
If it were a foregone conclusion that Tesla was going to sell 500,000 vehicles a year, the stock would be a lot higher than it is now. I'm saying it's a $300 stock if they max out the factory. I'm haircutting that for the execution risk. I'm not saying there's not risk, to $200. And the question, I think, is can this management team manage through the obstacles facing them as they grow into becoming a much larger automaker? And I think the answer is yes. So far, this management team has proven that it can be trusted to sort of manage through whatever might come up.
Well, let me just ask you about the management team and Elon Musk. They recently did a secondary that was underwritten by Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley. Elon Musk took $50 million out of that, but he also borrowed money from Goldman Sachs in order to participate in the secondary offering. Does that make any sense?
To me, it's like a small business owner who mortgages his house to fund his small business, only this is not on a much larger scale. I mean, he does have skin in the game. He's basically betting everything on the company, and that seems to make sense to me. Most of his assets are illiquid, so he would have to borrow to put the money back in.
Andrea, what about the sales comparison to the Toyota Prius? We're talking about Toyota, which has an extensive dealer network. Tesla has no dealer network to speak of. When you compare the two, the Prius, I think they're not even selling 30,000 cars a year. How do you get to 500,000 with Tesla?
I haven't seen those figures, so I can't verify that. I'd say, look, the BMW 3 Series is doing, I mean, that's what I comp Tesla against, is their peers. The BMW 3 Series is doing more than 460,000 vehicles a year. The global auto market for the Gen 3 vehicle, Tesla's next generation vehicle, I'd say is about 10 million. So they got 2% market share. They'd sell 200,000. And then finally, I'd say hybrids are priced at a little bit of a premium to their peers, and Tesla's cars are not. You get a really good car for the price you pay. That helps them on the demand side.
And you think that they're going to be able to maintain these current margins? I mean, the car that Tesla sells comes in at a price tag of about $100,000. They're really going to sell 200,000 automobiles at under 50,000? I mean, Porsche has a Boxster. They only sell about 10,000 units a year.
So I love that you brought up Porsche. Porsche's gross margins are 38 to 40%. So talking about a gross margin of 25% for Tesla is not unreasonable, first of all. Second of all,
but Andrea, I just got to tell you that Porsche only sells 150,000 cars a year, and that's in the best year it's ever had, 150, and you're talking about 500,000 for Tesla.
You need to break down price points and volume. And we can do a table, but we can't do that here on TV. So what I'd say is you got to look at market share, and then you asked about gross margins, and you want to see the gross margins increase for Tesla. Their factory is not at peak efficiency right now. The truth is that most of us have not seen the P&L for a new auto line starting up, because usually when a new auto line starts up, it's buried within the P&L of a much larger automaker. So Tesla's P&L gets a lot of scrutiny, as it should, but it doesn't mean that they can't grow the gross margins, can't achieve the gross margin targets they're targeting, and I have breakdowns, of course, in my published research reports, or that they can't scale on volumes as well. The global auto market is like 76 to 80 million cars a year. So we're still talking about rounding errors here when we talk about Tesla's target units.